action. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are out there in the world. It's time for us all to step out on the Highwire. I'm really excited about this next interview. This is a doctor, a scientist that came on our show first during COVID. He's been on here twice. And every once in a while, there's just one of those people that just has a way of putting things and understanding how he does his research that I think is incredibly captivating. He brought forward how important vitamin D was, not just why, but the mechanism with which it worked. He provided one of our top-selling books, The Indoctrinated Brain. Well, he's got a new book right now, The Conspiracy to Stop Lithium, The Conspiracy Against Lithium. There it is. His name is Dr. Michael Nehls, and if you haven't heard of him or haven't been watching him on our show, take a look at this.
Dr. Michael Nehls.
Dr. Michael Nehls.
Dr. Nehls.
He's a medical doctor, a physician.
He's a molecular geneticist specializing in immunology.
Dr. Nehls advocates for a strong mental immune system. His studies look at the critical portion of our brain known as the hippocampus, which processes and indexes memories.
What does the brain need to think at all? Was the topic of my work the last 10 to 15 years.
Humans are so eager to learn narratives. Narratives are the food of our mental immune system.
2018, the World Economy Forum told us depression is the #1 cause of ill health and disability worldwide. And from this low, after 6 months into the COVID measures, we had a 3-fold increase.
People who've taken the mRNA vac seem different psychologically.
Yeah.
We're not imagining that.
That's what's really happening. It's not about health, really to undermine the human ability to think, and it's even worse than that.
It attacks part of the brain that is responsible for decision making, for the ability to doubt what's going on. If you want to install a new operating system in a computer, for example, you have to erase the previous system. That's exactly what the spike protein helps to do. The greatest long-term threat, in my opinion, is the collapse of the individual mental and thus social immune system. But there's hope. I've shown recently that with low-dose essential lithium, you can block GSK3, and people with brain fog, it disappears. Lithium is really extending life, but the essentiality is not recognized by the world community.
He's the author of The Conspiracy Against Lithium, and it's my pleasure to be joined right now by Dr. Michael Nehls.
Hi, Del.
Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me again.
Welcome back. You know, the last time you were here, we were discussing this book, The Indoctrinated Brain. You've got several others you've given me to take a look at. But the last time you were in studio, we were talking about vitamin D and a lot of things were going on with, COVID. Mm-hmm. But you had touched on lithium. And we got so many people writing in that just wanted to know more about low-dose lithium. I started sending it to my parents. We started taking it at home. But in all honesty, like I don't feel like I have the whole picture. And then in looking at this book, I mean, you talk about this like it may be one of the most important elements in the world for our health.
Well, I mean, it's like all the elements that are essential. So it's not something special by itself. What it makes it special is that it's one of the first trace elements in the existence of life. Maybe I tracked it down to the ancestor of all life. We called LUCA, last universal common ancestor. So what I could show is that lithium regulates key molecules that are important for life. In all animals, in all plants, in fungi, in mushrooms, in every life, and it does it by the same mechanism. And this mechanism is vital to life, and particularly vital for our brain. And so, for me, it was astonishing that this particular trace element has not been recognized for hundreds of years already as an essential element. But
what does that term essential element mean?
Essential means that if you lack it completely, it's you are dead. It's incompatible with life.
Wow.
Already in the 1970s, people tried to reduce lithium content in the diet of animals, and immediately the litter size shrunk, fertility went down, the death rate of the animals in the first few months increased dramatically, the size of the the piglets or whatever they tested, the little rat babies were smaller. They suffered from diseases. They were not able to completely shut down lithium in the diet because it's pretty much everywhere, but the reduction itself had a dramatic effect. So it was clear it's essential in animals, and there is no reason to assume it's not essential in humans. And if you are lucky to live here in Texas, where the lithium content is usually a little bit higher than, for example, in eastern United States or in Europe, then you have a lower likelihood of being admitted to a mental hospital because you don't develop mental disease more likely, as in areas where the lithium content is lower in the daily food, particularly in the
So is it food? Am I getting it through vegetables? Is it coming out of the earth? Is it in my water? Where is it?
It's pretty much everywhere, but of course you can't have anything in the food or not much in the food if the soil doesn't contain it. So geologically old regions have been washed out. It's pretty much like with iodine. For example, I come from the Black Forest area in Europe, in Germany. It's an geologically old area. So people have endemic iodine deficiency, for example. And you know, iodine deficiency leads to severe compromise in brain development, for example. You also get the goiter here, you know, it's because the thyroid gland tries to make thyroid hormone, which it can't because iodine is essential for it. Again, the word essential. And the same problem with iodine you have with lithium. Old geological regions have low levels of lithium, and more volcanic, earlier regions where the earth is younger, they have still higher content of lithium because lithium is washed out over the millions of years by rainwater, and so the lithium content in sweet water is in fresh water is about 100-fold lower than in salt water.
Wow!
So in salt water is where you find most of the lithium, and that brings me to the book. I explain where our brain has developed to today's current, abilities. It was about 200,000 years ago when the whole mankind went through a needle, a bottleneck. And in this bottleneck area, people only survived at the coast and South Africa. Actually, this area where the people survived became a World Cultural Heritage Site in 2024 for that reason. And the main food at the time was mussels. Mussels they could find on the seashore.
Okay.
And it was found out that in the caves where the people lived, there were meters of these the shelves, left over 200,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And they could find out that people were highly advanced already based on the stuff they could find from that time. They had symbolic thinking already 70, 80, 90,000 years ago. And their main food compared to the food they had in the land in Africa, because they had living in Africa was not possible at the time anymore because there was an ice age, about 70,000 year long ongoing ice age. Africa was completely dried out. People had to survive essentially at the beach. And this time they got something which they didn't get in inland, and that was enough lithium. And lithium, besides aquatic fatty acids, omega-3 fatty acids that come from mussels and fish, they had every nutrient they required for brain health. And that's the reason why we are used to a certain amount of lithium. And once we move to other areas in the world, like the Alps, like my Black Forest area, not only lithium levels dropped in the food, but also iodine levels dropped. Ah. So it's a close parallel, and similar to iodine, it took many decades before people realized that iodine deficiency is detrimental and you have to supply it as a supplement. And now I'm fighting for the understanding that the same goes on for lithium. And while iodine deficiency makes a general impact on the brain, lithium deficiency particularly causes an impact on the hippocampus, meaning what I call the mental immune system, pretty much what makes us human. the ability to change position, to see the world from the eyes from other people, put yourself in the shoes of other people.
Wow, we could use that. It sounds like we're definitely deficient of that.
Yeah,
in America
absolutely.
Right now.
I can prove actually that the ability to think peace, to be curious, to see the point of other people, to actually be willing to see the point of other people because you have this psychological resilience. All these are functions of the mental immune system residing in the hippocampus. And it's interesting that I was able to show in the book that the hippocampus particularly tries to accumulate lithium because lithium is important for the proliferation of cells. So cell proliferation, the telomerase, I don't know if the word makes any sense, what is important for
is what we like longevity, is what everyone's trying to extend those telomerase to extend life.
Exactly. So if you live in an area where you have a little bit more lithium in the drinking water, you have a longer life, a healthier life. Less likely Alzheimer's, less likely cardiac diseases, all kind of chronic diseases humankind is fighting are dependent on the amount of lithium, and lithium accumulates in those organs which proliferate. And the hippocampus, as our mental immune system, is the only region of the brain which produces new nerve cells on a daily basis. And in my book, The Exhausted Brain, which also came out last year, I showed that our problem that we have during the day, that we start to exhaust, in the morning we are fresh, we want to do something, but in the evening we kind of exhaust. The scientific term is ego depletion. And ego depletion resolves overnight when we sleep. And part of this resolving...
Did you say ego depletion?
Ego depletion, self-depletion. We are exhausted, in the evening we don't make good decisions usually anymore, we should refrain. I remember when I was CEO in a company in Germany, I told my assistant I don't want to make any difficult decisions in the evening anymore. So no invitation of employees or whatever where we have to discuss important things. Do that in the morning, because I'm not that fresh anymore. I might make mistakes. Even emails I usually write in the evening, but I don't send them off. I wait until the morning.
Good idea.
Until ego depletion has recovered, And I try to find out what happens in the brain when our brain depletes overnight. And as you know, decision making is better when you have what Daniel Kahneman, he got the Nobel Prize for that in 2002, the psychologist, when unfortunately he died last year, but he got the Nobel Prize for defining system 1, system 2, the different types of thinking. System 1 is when we think. Actually, we don't think. We just follow essentially, behavior that we are used to behave. A standard behavior, learned behavior, or even inborn behavior. And system 2 is when we are able to critically think. Consciously making decisions, change our behavior if necessary. This is system 2. But system 2 requires energy, and this energy depletes over the day. So he got the Nobel Prize for identifying this difference, and but what he didn't identify and was unknown for decades after is what type of energy is that?
What feeds that energy? What creates it? What nourishes it?
Yeah. What energy is depleting? And how does this energy recover during the night? And I was able to show in my book, The Exhausted Brain, that the exhaustion is diminishing overnight because new nerve cells are produced, which are required to make new thoughts without overriding former thoughts. That we are willing to be curious again, that we have psychological resilience. It all depends on these cells. And these cells are produced from stem cells every day. And this production is requiring lithium. So that's why our mental immune system, our ability to do these things that humans do, be social animals, so to speak, interact with others, find solutions to problems without killing each other, usually. All these abilities which define us as humans are depending on the activity of what I call the mental immune system, and that goes down to the ability of the hippocampus to produce new nerve cells. And this ability depends on the presence of lithium.
So your book is called The Conspiracy Against Lithium. I suppose we're all sitting here thinking this sounds really fascinating, very important. Why have I not heard this? In fact, why is my only understanding of lithium, I swear I feel like it takes me back to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, in a movie in an insane asylum where everyone's being given lithium, and we think of it as something that just like dumbs you down, no, you know what I mean, is used as a sedative, I think, in psychological or I guess psychiatry.
Yeah, especially for bipolar disorder, it's used,
right,
and for severe depression. But the amounts of lithium used at that point are so high. I have a picture in my book where I show, try to visualize what concentrations we are talking about. So there are two skyscrapers, the Burj Khalifa, in Dubai, as with like 800 meters, and about 400 meters, the Empire State Building. And 400 and 800 is like 4,000 microgram per liter to 8,000 microgram. This is the range people are given when they are treated for bipolar disorder, depression, 4,000 to 8,000. When I talk about lithium in essential doses, you have to look down, far down from the skyscraper, and you see maybe people running around. And the concentration that people need to stay healthy their whole life and have the longest life expectancy is the size of people. That means compared to this height of these big buildings, this is the size we need. And if there's a little mouse besides these people, this is the concentration people actually have. Wow. So what people require is the size of the house, what people actually have in areas where you have a low concentration of lithium.
Here you have that example. It's a great way to look at it.
It's the way to look at it. So it
somewhere between 10
to 20, yeah.
To 20. And you're saying we're at about 2.
0.2.
0.2.
Yeah. So we measure 0.2 in children in Germany. The average officially is about 1 microgram we have in Germany.
On average, when you test people?
When we test people, that's the average. But of course, you have a difference, of course, in the population.
Yeah.
In children, depending on how they eat, we have even lower levels. And if we give these people or these children a concentration that brings them up to the 10 to 20 microgram, we see major effects, really major effects. Children with autism, the people who treat them suddenly ask, the parents, I think we have maybe made the wrong, diagnosis. It wasn't autism to begin with. We see major effects in social life, in anger, containment, in interaction with other people.
Wow.
Irritability is dramatically reduced. One of the reasons is that lithium is not only important for the production of new nerve cells in the hippocampus, it's also the target of lithium is also, for example, GSK3, which is the major driver of inflammation, particularly neuroinflammation. So when I wrote The Indoctrinated Brain, and people asked me, what can we do about, for example, the spike protein causing neuroinflammation and shutting down the hippocampus by this means, because all pro-inflammatory cytokines that are produced, interleukin-6, interleukin-1, TNF-alpha, all these cytokines are produced when the spike protein is recognized in the brain, which is one of the reasons I talk about indoctrination, because then the mental immune system is shut down. And without a mental immune system, we are prone to accept any narrative as true and cannot, fight against it.
Yeah.
The mental immune system is here that we have a better understanding of the world and are not believing everything that we are told.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the weaponizing of this.
So you think that's what it was? They saw that lithium makes you a critical thinker,
Absolutely.
More likely to challenge the system, not be just a robot, just do what you're told. If you want people to do what they're told, you deny them lithium and they just sort of go with the programming.
Lithium brings you back to the mental immune system. I mean, it's part of it. It's not working on its own. Of course, it works on its own if lithium deficiency is the only deficiency. In my book, you find a picture of what I call the law of the minimum. The law of the minimum states that every growing, it was discovered in 1828, in Germany by a researcher on production of plants, in agriculture, and he identified 12 essential components that a plant needs to grow. And if one is missing, it doesn't grow. It's obvious. Okay. And if you add more of a second one, and not the one which is missing, it doesn't help. Good. It does no good.
So you can take all these vitamins for deficiencies, but if you're not feeding it with the ones that help,
that's really missing, then you don't get the effect. So, so the law of the minimum is a fundamental law to understand everything in life. And I think it's the fundamental law of life itself. And that's why it's probably not taught in med school. It's not taught in med school. And the reason is quite simple. All chronic diseases have usually at their core a deficiency. One of them is lithium. Now, if you understand the law of the minimum, then you understand that no drug in the world can replace lithium. So when you understand the law of the minimum, then doctors would ask themselves, why would I prescribe a drug against Alzheimer's if the deficiency of lithium is the major cause?
Right.
So they would start thinking about their practice.
So again, this is one of those places when you look at America, Robert Kennedy Jr., the MAHA movement, trying to get better food, diets taking place. We're learning a lot more. I've talked about on the show for years that the education in nutrition, in supplements, doesn't exist in medical school. Everything is just, and it's really been taken over by the pharmaceutical industry. Everything is a new drug to put a Band-Aid on a problem instead of get the essential core issues. And you're saying this is one of the core issues, that if we knew this, if we were, getting this into our bodies, we wouldn't be needing all these drugs and other things that we're having side effects and problems with.
I was asked by Ignazio Cassis. He was at the time the foreign minister of Switzerland, and he was organizing a big event called the International Cooperation Summit. And the topic of the event in 2024 was peace. And I just wrote The Exhausted Brain, and it was inspiring enough for these guys to invite me to give the keynote. And I had to explain in 15 minutes, and I gave the talk in English, so we can maybe link it. And I gave in 15 minutes, I had to give essentially the answer to the question, what does the brain need to think peace? And I said, what the brain doesn't need, because if you want to think peace, you have to think at all. You have to be able to think in the first place. And thinking for me is in using system 2. But system 2 requires a mental immune system based on the production of new nerve cells in the hippocampus. So spike proteins undermine the production. So a spike protein injection by mRNA is not a good way if you want to make people thinking peace, because it undermines the ability to think peace. It also undermines democracy, because democracy means that people are able to make their own thoughts up, and
make their own decisions. Power of the people. People
exactly.
vote. Government run by the people versus just being dictated by a government.
Exactly. And at that time in 2024, and it was pretty much the time when we met first time.
Yeah.
I said, but I will make it my goal in the next year, and that's what I did, to prove that lithium is essential for mental health. And it was in Basel, this is the heart in Europe where all these pharmaceutical industries reside, Roche, Novartis, all are around there. And I really felt when I was on the stage, 1,500 people from over 100 countries worldwide were present, that I put, like a target here on my press, because honestly, 90% of the pharmaceutical market depends on lithium deficiency.
Really?
Yeah, because lithium targets, and I show here in the book, which I tracked down to the origin, LUCA, the last universal common ancestor, the lithium targets.
Last universal common ancestor.
Yeah, lived about 4.2 billion years ago, and he is essentially the father cell, it was a single cell for all living beings. And this cell already had lithium targets. The same lithium target we all use today. And one of these lithium targets, for example, is impase, inositol monophosphatase. A strange word, I just name it impase. And actually you can see it here.
Yeah.
on this slide is the central core of the protein. The protein has 280 amino acids. These are about 80 amino acids, and you see here a few of these amino acids that are highly conserved, from human on the top to bacteria down.
So chimpanzees, wolves, bats, yeah.
So you can go down essentially 4 billion years, and you still find impase in the common ancestor. And in these core amino acids here, they are conserved because they bind lithium. And if they bind lithium, then impase is inactivated, which is important. And by inactivating impase, it's the same actually what ivermectin is doing. Ivermectin's target is impase. And if impase, here you can see that, is binding magnesium, that's what it does, then it's active. When it's active, it shuts down autophagy. If it binds lithium,
so autophagy being cell death, ability to clear things out of the body, you know,
so if
clean up the body.
So if lithium is missing, you have a lack in autophagy. And autophagy is one detrimental mechanism for example, viruses. If a virus enters your body,
right,
autophagy is the key process of digesting the virus and killing him.
Right.
So that's how ivermectin works. And lithium does the same. So if, for example, somebody has a severe respiratory infection, give him 20 milligrams of lithium 2 times a day. And in one experiment, it was done with 40 milligrams 2 times a day. And people were out of the hospital in half the time.
Wow.
Because it immediately shuts down what we call the cytokine storm, because it acts on one other targets, and that's called GSK3, glycogen synthase kinase 3. We just call it GSK3.
Okay.
GSK3 is the main pharmaceutical target that we know of. The pharmaceutical industry invests since the 1980s billions of dollars each year to find a target that inhibits GSK3. GSK3 activity is at the core of every chronic disease that we know of. So lithium is the natural inhibitor of GSK3. So if you remove lithium out of the system, out of the society, if people don't know how important lithium is, then all people have a high level of GSK3 activity. And high GSK3 activity is the cause of chronic inflammation, and that is the cause of chronic disease.
Are you saying that was done on purpose?
Absolutely. That's why it's a conspiracy.
They knew this. They knew that if they denied us this, we would have all sorts of health issues.
They knew a lot of things at the time.
Off of us.
At the time when the conspiracy started against lithium, people didn't know how exactly lithium works, but they knew it is important. So,
what time period are we talking about?
We're talking about exactly about spring 1949.
Okay.
In 1949, the concept of treating people with bipolar disorder at these levels of 4,000 to 8,000 microgram was rediscovered by John Cade, a psychiatrist from Australia. He published a paper in 1949 showing that with high levels of lithium, you can treat people with bipolar disorder, and particularly the manic portion of the bipolar disorder. It's depression and manic phases. The manic phase is best treated with lithium. And then he concluded, if that works so good, then maybe a lack of lithium in childhood might have been the cause of bipolar disorder. And then he concluded further, if that's the case, then then lithium must be an essential trace element. You can read it in his first paper. So lithium must be an essential trace element. That was the first time in history that people believed lithium might be essential. At the same year, it was a ban on lithium as a supplement was implemented by the FDA. In the same year. And it was done in a very awful way. So first of all, maybe a little sideline here. Because lithium was so important for people, all natural springs which contained lithium were usually places where people went to when they didn't feel good. So it was recognized for centuries that there are certain areas where a lot of lithium or certain fountains, sources of water were more helpful than others. And then in the mid of the 19th century, it was identified that the common denominator was lithium. A little bit higher lithium content, people felt more happy, chronic diseases, inflammation, all dropped. So in the beginning of the 20th century, they took the water from these fountains and from these natural springs and brought them into the cities. I have pictures in here where they went with with horse carriages, brought the lithium water into the cities for people to drink. Yeah. 7-Up, you might know. 7-Up was lithiated soda. It's actually
really
shown here. It's lithiated lemon soda. That was the original recipe. It had 1 milligram of lithium per glass of 7-Up.
Was it supposed to be a soda drink, or was it in a hospital?
It was a soda drink, and it was up means upregulation of the mood, and
make you feel better.
Yeah, and 7 hints to the atomic weight of lithium.
So Coca-Cola was delivering cocaine, and 7-Up was going with lithium.
Actually, there was also a Coca-Cola version with lithium.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was one, and as you could see on the slide, in 1949 it was forbidden. Actually, this is Londonderry water. This is a book about Londonderry Lithia. That is a spring, I think, in north of New York. And all the diseases are in this book named already. That was in 1903.
They knew it then.
They knew it already. And then when...
And now it's illegal, right? There's places you can't... Like, we can get a supplement of lithium, because I get it for our house, my family.
It was forbidden by the FDA in 1949, based on the fact that on 3 different centers in the United States, clinical centers, in 3 different centers at the same time, this is the paper here, 1994, stopped using this dangerous poison at once. What they did is they had patients in these 3 different centers, and the doctors told their patients, well, you have a heart problem, sodium chloride is not good for you, so you have to stop using sodium chloride. But of course, the food doesn't taste very well without salt, Right. We have something better for you. And they gave them lithium chloride.
Okay.
But instead of this 1 milligram of lithium, that is essential in my opinion, they gave these people, so much that the food tasted good. That means not milligram, but gram.
Wow.
So they went above the skyscraper, way above the skyscraper, and they killed them. And they knew that they are going to kill them. This is actually there are 3 different papers here. You can see them, all 3 of them published back to back in the Journal of the American Medical Association in March 12 or so, I think 1949. And that was the reason the FDA was able to essentially put a ban on...
with hydroxychloroquine, with a couple of trials where they give lethal doses, then see it's dangerous, even though the whole world knew hydroxychloroquine.
It's copy-paste. It's the same scheme. Since this time, 1949, it was not only banned as a supplement in America, in the United States, it was banned essentially worldwide. In Europe, the ban is still existing. I gave a talk at the European Parliament in June last year, to tell, a 1.5-hour talk, and it's I showed how absurd it is, that this ban still exists. In the United States, it was resolved when the FDA, when the food and the drug portion of the FDA was somehow new regulated. I think it was around 1987.
Okay.
And between this new regulation, lithium as lithium orotate fell between the cracks, and it is now possible in the United States to sell lithium orotate as a supplement.
Yeah.
But because the FDA cannot forbid it anymore, of course as the seller, you are responsible for any side effects, But this is now almost 40 years, and so nothing happened regarding side effects.
So just to wrap this up, if someone's watching right now, especially our kids, it does seem like, look, if this is important to a child's, if there's a deficiency that leads to issues as they're older, obviously we all want our kids to be, as their brain developing, well, their immune system of their brain, their ability to critically think, especially those that watch this show and are living in a world where we feel like our kids are being dumbed down by the school system on purpose. Do I have to go to a doctor and do a blood test and figure out how much is there, or can I make an assumption that there's a deficiency and there's a safe amount? Is there a safe amount that if you just take this amount, you'll be doing yourself a benefit and you don't have to worry about it?
Let's put it this way. I've concluded in the book, the whole chapter 3 is about this issue, also for children. And I had to come up with what is the dose of lithium we need.
Yeah.
And I was not the first who asked this question. There was actually Gerald Schrautzer. He is was a German scientist, worked at UCSD, had his own institute. He was in 2002, he published a paper about the essentiality of lithium, even though he didn't have all the facts that I put in my book now, 20 years later. But he already mentioned at that time that 1 milligram of lithium per day for a 70 kilogram average person.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are many average persons with 70 kilograms but nowadays. But anyway, he said that 1 milligram.
What is that in pounds in America? 70 kilograms.
70 kilograms is about 150 pounds, I would say.
150 pounds, okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit more than the double, you know.
Okay.
Based on the 450 gram per pound.
Okay.
Yeah, so in the book you will find in chapter 3 what I recommend for children. But we see when we use that, and I work very close with children, with pediatricians. I have a network of far over 100 pediatricians now in the German-speaking world. And I would like to extend this, maybe with Kennedy's Children's Health Defense, to the whole world. That what we measure in children, what they should get, and what the effects are. And the effects are so traumatic. I put a quote in here from one of my friends, a pediatrician, Christian Schellenberg, and he works with children. He gives them omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin D. He gives them everything children need. So he understands the law of the minimum. When I introduced him to the concept of lithium, he said the lithium was the major factor from all supplements he gave children in the last 20 years. This is the most game-changing one that I've ever seen in the behavior of children, how they behave in families, how they are able to do their schoolwork, you know, interact with other children. Being able to think as humans, you know, in what we hope what humans do. That means, being able to put yourself in the shoes of others, you know, don't fight for about nothing, you know. Think about problems and solve problems, and that's what humans should do. And with neuroinflammation based on the fact that lithium is missing GSK3, that lithium is missing based on the fact that the hippocampus is not growing, and in the long term that lithium causes Alzheimer's. I think the people, the world should know about this. There was a paper 2 months after I gave my lecture at the European Parliament. 2 months later, it was on the 6th of August 2025. The Harvard University published in the prestigious Nature journal that a lack of lithium causes Alzheimer's. A lack of natural amounts of lithium causes Alzheimer's. And it might be the element against Alzheimer's. I published this already in a scientific paper 10 years earlier. 2016, I published a paper, Unified Theory of Alzheimer's Disease, which, in my opinion, should be the basis for Make America Healthy Again, because everything that's in there, based on because you can look at the human body and say, okay, we want to have a healthy heart, we want to have healthy kidneys, liver, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think the healthy brain is the key. And once you have a healthy brain, then the heart will follow, you know. I mean, everything that's good for the brain is good for the rest of the body. So when I look at the unified theory, you find everything that causes Alzheimer's when things are lacking, everything that causes Alzheimer when you give too much of something, you know, toxins, environmental toxins, glyphosate, whatever, you know. And I show how they all interact on the hippocampus and damaging or supporting, you know, the production of new nerve cells. And if the production goes down, Alzheimer it follows. So this was all published. And then a paper came out on the 6th of August 2025 published in Nature by a study from Harvard University, and they conclude essentially that lithium is essential. Then you have a lack of lithium, the brain is damaged, and it causes Alzheimer's. But even this paper didn't make it happen that lithium is recognized as an essential trace element.
Wow.
So one of the reasons I came here to you is because I know you have also connections, of course, to Robert F. Kennedy. Ursula von der Leyen has no interest, for the health of the people.
Sure.
She's the major lobbyist for the pharmaceutical industry, and does everything that essentially is against the human brain, while officially saying, I want to help people.
Yeah.
Just to give you an example, one of the reasons the hippocampus is dying off while we are getting older is because the production of new nerve cells is inhibited by our lifestyle. Lithium is one of the reasons, lithium deficiency, but not the only one. But altogether, we can become healthy or stay healthy up to the highest age. Alzheimer is not natural. I've shown this several times, and the whole recipe how to preserve the brain from Alzheimer's is here in the book in chapter 4. But people don't want that. They want to make money with it. And the major money you can make with Alzheimer's is by injection of antibodies, immunization. They immunize against the protein that we need for thinking. And it was this treatment, antibodies, monoclonal antibodies against the key molecule that we need for thinking, system 2 thinking actually, for brain function, was defined as this is the protein, this is now our drug target, and we devise antibodies against this target, and then we cure Alzheimer's. It's the biggest fraud in history in research that ever happened. It happened mainly at the National Institute of Aging at the NIH. And it was all published, it was published in Science last year. This is the biggest fraud in history. But it continues. Then the European agency, similar to the FDA, we have the EMA, the European Medical Association, has said these drugs that are actually allowed in America, in the United States, we don't allow them in Europe. Because they actually let the brain shrink faster. It is shown, it's published. The brain shrinks faster, Alzheimer develops faster. The Mayo Clinic published in spring 2025 the major side effects of the drug against Alzheimer's, and one of them is Alzheimer. And one particular one is you cannot change false beliefs anymore once you got this drug.
Wow.
It's almost like immunization against misinformation.
Wow.
So the EMA, the pendant to the FDA, said no. 6 months later, von der Leyen said yes. I don't care what my agency is saying. I allow this drug to be on the market.
Wow.
And I was showing in my speech at the European Parliament that lithium, and there are many review articles about this, lithium works cheaper, better, more efficient against Alzheimer's. Actually, it was shown already in 2013. Trace amount of lithium, 300 micrograms, that's not even a milligram a day, keeps people stable for 15 months compared to control groups. So I've tried it in different ways to convince people there. And that's my big hope now. That's why I'm here, that maybe, Kennedy does the trick. Because I need only one country in the world which states lithium is essential. And then it's like a domino,
All right. Well, look, why don't you stick around for Off the Record, and I want to hear what your advice to Robert Kennedy Jr. would be for the United States of America. We'll get into details on that. You have 4 books now. This one, by the way, is a top seller still in our store. That's The Indoctrinated Brain. You've got The Algae Oil Revolution, The Exhausted Brain, and now The Conspiracy Against Lithium. Is there a website or someone who wants to track all that you're doing? That's the best place to go?
The best is to go on my Substack,
Okay, your Substack?
Yeah, you can just go on my Substack.
And your books are all on Amazon and everywhere else that you can find
Absolutely. And
All right.
Wisdom is easy to find.
Okay, very good. Well, look, here it is. The Conspiracy Against Lithium. It just seems like such a simple thing. And when you hear something and it just rings true, that's the experience I'm having right now. I've had that every time you've come on. There's something about your research and the way that you're putting your thoughts together that always makes me excited when you call and say, hey, I want to come and talk about, get deeper into a concept, in this case, lithium. Really exciting stuff. So if you're out there, make sure you buy this book. And speaking of books, we are excited because this month is all about getting books, and we want to make that easy for you at our store. Take a look at this.
February is National Library Lovers Month, and we're celebrating the power of books that tell the truth. This month, all books in the Highwire merch shop have special limited time pricing. The more you buy, the more you save. These aren't just books, they're tools. Every medical freedom fighter should have them on their shelves at home to learn from, to reference, to pass on. You're supporting the courageous authors creating useful, truthful work in a time of censorship. So stock your shelves, support the movement, exclusive deals only at the Highwire.shop.
We're getting reports that lithium sales are going through the roof right now as we speak. I know I'm going to run out of here and make sure that we are stocked up at our house. But speaking of reports, I want to check in on that poll that we've started. This is a poll that anyone can take anywhere around the world on this glyphosate issue. Once again, if you haven't taken the poll, you can do it right now. You can share it with a friend. You can type 72022 as the number and write in the word poll, and you will get the poll right there. You can go bit.ly/ICANPoll. Is another way to get there, or just click on this QR code. My understanding is there's several hundred people during the show have already weighed in. So let's see some of the early results. Are you aware that glyphosate-based herbicides have been associated with cancer claims? Looks like 95.7% of you watching the show right now knew that. We're going to have some retesting of the 3.5% there. Have you not been watching the Highwire? Anyway, no, that's a great score. Look at this one. Do you believe manufacturers of glyphosate-based herbicides should have legal immunity from lawsuits related to alleged health harms? Hell no. We should have had a hell no, I think, there instead of just no. And then the next question, should federal policy allow the stockpiling of glyphosate-based herbicides as part of national preparedness planning? 88.5% of you are saying no, 9.7% are unsure, and yes, 1.8%. And there's one more. Does the November 28, 2025 retraction of the foundational study used to support the safety of glyphosate affect your trust in current safety claims? Yes. 79.2% of you, that's a big deal. No, had no. I was just sort of wondering on that no, 14.3%. They're probably like, no, it didn't have any effect. I already didn't trust them. But unsure, 6.5%. It's a lot of fun, really cool, but there's even more data that is going to be drilled down inside of there so that as you're filling it out, we're going to make sure you get emailed the final results and all of the different things that we learned about the population and what we actually think on this issue. And if the numbers are big enough, why don't we send that off to Donald Trump and say, yoo-hoo, you may be making a mistake here. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone that took place in that poll right away. I love how you guys all jump on top of this. And I hope you are, marking off in your calendar April 27th. I think Vani Hari's got a big thing going, the people versus poison. It's going to be an amazing moment. It's obviously was just brainstormed. I think right here live on this show. So a lot of work to do there. Let's all reach out to Vani Hari and get our different groups together and see if we can't make that a spectacular event. I had a wild week on top of everything else that was reported. This article came out at the Atlantic. I've been telling you, I knew it was coming. An article about Bigtree. Look at this headline. I genuinely am upset that your kids are vaccinated. Bigtree, a longtime ally of Robert F. Kennedy Jr., isn't just anti-vaccine, he's pro-infection. I'm actually going to, Tom Bartlett wrote the article. Tom, I'm getting lots of reports. Lots of my friends are getting a kick out of this article. I even texted Tom about that earlier. I would say it's a hit piece, but look, Tom, thanks for taking the time. We're going to continue the conversations. We actually have a real debate going on, and there's a few things that happen in that article. Finally, for the first time ever, Tom admits that pertussis does not stop transmission. He admits polio doesn't stop transmission. I think those are huge things. So, there was some awareness there and understanding that we came to together. He also points out how I think that I should be allowed to have the Ferrari of immunity, which comes from having an infection, versus the Ford Pinto of immunity, which is what you get from the, fallible vaccine program. Anyway, it's a wild article, and I'm going to use my social media next week to deal with some of the points that are probably going to be shocking to a lot lot of Americans that happened in that article. So stay connected with me on Facebook, X, Instagram, at Bigtree. That's where I refute some of the claims that are being made. In this case, where I'm going to discuss some of the issues that come up that weren't really given the total context in the article. So I'm going to do that on my social media. And a first of its kind tomorrow on my Instagram, I'm going to do a live Q&A. So if you're on Instagram tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 here Central time on Instagram at Bigtree, I'm going to spend an hour taking any question you might have and answering it. I thought that might be a fun interaction. So many people, want to have that opportunity to have a question answered. So I'm going to do that. We'll see how that goes. Maybe I'll start doing more things like that. I want to bring attention to a really dear friend that, Vax, the film that I made that, sort of changed my life forever and put me in the center of this. Wouldn't have been possible without the chiropractors out there that were really supportive. And one of them was the president of Life University, who just passed this last week. Dr. Guy Reichman, a good friend, president of Life University from 2004 to 2017, from 17 to 20. He was chancellor, just an awesome guy. To all the chiropractors that knew him, there I am, one of the early screenings of Vax, super great champion. Honestly, was probably a medical freedom champion before I was. We're going to miss you, but man, you left a mark on this earth, which is all any of us can dream to do. What a great man. And so many of you great people out there, a part of the Informed Consent Action Network. I feel the water starting to boil. It's starting to heat up. They think we've gone back to sleep. Are you ready? Are you ready for it? Are you ready to step up? You ready to make your voices heard? You ready for another battle? This is what's going on. It's for our children. It's for our time. It's for our lives. It's for the future of the earth. You're here for a reason. Don't complain. These are interesting times, and we're in the middle of it. And we're going to keep reporting on it every week on the Highwire. I'll see you next week. If you're listening right now on a podcast, let me make it really easy for you to donate. You're going to pick up your cell phone, you're going to type in the number 72022, and then just write in the word donate. And I'm going to respond with a text directly back to you.